and welcome to Quarter Time Podcast. I'm Lucy G.
And I'm Lucy P.
And we're here to bring you all the netball goodness you never knew you needed.
Welcome to episode 6 of Quarter Time Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. I am joined today, as always, by the lovely Lucy G, who is doing her best Batman impression today.
Hello. I'm so sorry, folks. I'm a little bit under the weather today, so my voice isn't as glorious as it normally is. So, you're going to have to bear with me, I'm afraid. Lucy P, tell us what we've got coming up on the show today.
Well, round 5 and 6 was an absolute cracker with some stunning performances on display. We're going to kick off with our 3-word summaries for all 10 games, including some really great ones from you guys, our lovely listeners, and then taking a deeper look into the 2 matches we've chosen as our games of the round, as well as naming our players of the round. You know the drill. It's episode 6. We're also bringing you Netball in the Media Part 2 with none other than Caroline Barker. Let's get straight into it with the opening game of the round. Take it away, Lucy G.
So first up was Stars versus Storm, and I've gone with what an improvement. It was so nice to see Stars really entering the league and giving us the type of performance that we knew they were capable of.
Next we had Bath versus Thunder.
Oh,
for this one, Zara Collins on Twitter said, blue brick wall. And we thought that summed it up so well. The Bath defense was just insane. This was a shock, and most people expected it to be a really close game, but Thunder looked absolutely lost with just 0 answers.
Oh, what a game that was. That was so exciting. Moving on, we had Storm versus Lightning, and I've gone with that Lightning defence. The whole defensive end for Lightning is just frighteningly good.
Next, it was Bath versus Stars. And this one I summarised by saying 4-goal quarter. I think it was the expected result that we all pretty much anticipated for this game in the Battle of the Southwest. But both shooters only had 1 miss. So it's clear from that the problem with Stars is around providing service to their shooters, and it's not to do with accuracy, really.
Following that was Thunder versus Wasps, and thanks to the lovely Kelly Walker, who also had a birthday during the round. So belated happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
She has gone with Wasps sting early. It was a difficult day at the office for Thunder, who did not have a great weekend overall. Katie Harris and Iona Christian in particular just dominated that attack end, and they left Thunder with lots of questions to answer.
First game on Sunday, we had Sirens versus Mavs. What a finish. Wowza. I mean, Vinkumbo came to play in this one. She was absolutely on fire. And this was a game that Mavs will have pretty much expected to win. So the question is, will this come back to haunt them later on in the season?
Following that cracker was Lightning versus Pulse. And thanks to Sarah Dodd on Twitter, we've gone with better than expected. Finally, here is the Pulse that we've been waiting for. Although it wasn't a flawless performance from them, they've showed that they're learning from their mistakes, which is so important. Their attacking end still doesn't look as settled as it should be, and I'm really hoping that Liv Tasheen gets more court time.
The final game on Sunday, we had Wasps versus Rhinos. And for this one, I said, 2-time champs.
Whoop-whoop.
It was a really plucky performance from Rhinos, but man, Wasps were just too strong on this occasion. And it was that first quarter that really put the nail in the coffin. Again, Iona Christian was an absolute standout in the midcourt for this one.
First of 2 games on Monday, it was Pulse versus Dragons. And I've gone with Here Come Pulse. It was a brutal performance from them, who smashed that second quarter by 20 goals to 3. Yikes. Tanya Hoffman and co certainly have a job on their hands if they want to get on the scoreboard, particularly taking into account the point deductions for the breach of the import rule.
And last up, we had Rhinos versus Sirens. And for this one, I said, Non-contact sport. There was so much body on body in this one, and we love to see it. It was a real clash of the titans for the final game of the round. Such a great win for Rhinos in the context of the season, but cannot wait to see these guys face off again in May. Moving on to our game of the round, Lucy G, which one have you gone for?
Oh, I had to go for the first draw in Super League history, apparently. It was Sirens versus Mavericks. It was quite a low-scoring game, but my goodness, was it exciting. It was a bit of a sloppy match from both sides, and I think both particularly lacked fluidity in attack. But even though it was sloppy and there was a lot of unforced errors, it was still so exciting to watch. As Kat Rapnapala mentioned in her interview, I think Sirens did deserve to win that game. And if they had greater game smarts and more experience in those high pressure moments, then they probably could have won. But absolute credit to them for really taking it to Mavs and showing us week on week how much they are growing as a side. I mean, what this is going to do for the Scotland national team is just going to be insane. You'd love to see it. Mavericks have really got to sort out the number of unforced errors and general play turnovers if they want any real hope of being top 4 contenders. They were lucky not to come away with a loss, but they probably should have won this game. Just to put that into numbers, there were 28 unforced errors from Mavericks in that game. And, you know, we spoke before about how they'll need to learn from their mistakes of the 2019 season. And I'm starting to wonder if they actually have. So let's see what they can pull out of the bag for next week.
Definitely. You can't be putting on 28 unforced errors against top sides like Bath and Thunder.
Definitely not.
So it's not acceptable. And I think they've got more in the tank. So let's wait and see if we can see it next round.
So what about you, Lucy? Who have you gone for?
Okay, so I've gone for, in my opinion, the biggest shocker of the round, which was Bath versus Thunder. I mean, what was that?
Literally, this game.
What happened? Bath scored 11 straight goals at one point in this game. And that just completely demonstrates how they were dominating in defence, forcing so many errors from a usually very clinical side. They got an 18-goal lead and Thunder just had no idea how to come back. I thought matchups-wise that Gusgoth was all over Cardwell and Cardwell was getting beaten there, unfortunately. Just going to recap on the quarter scores, okay? Bearing in mind this is Manchester Thunder. So 12-11, okay? 16-8, 16-7, 16-9. That is how many goals they let in this game. And Bath had 15 intercepts to Thunder's 5. And Layla Gusgoth had more turnovers herself than the entire Thunder team. That is crazy. Obviously, we know that the shooting combination of Kim and Sophie are amazing. They actually shot 100% in this game. So what are you going to do about that if you're Manchester Thunder? No idea. And what was interesting for me for this game is I took a look back at Thunder's 5 last loss margins. Okay, so the last 5 losses, they were by 3, by 3, by 5, by 3, by 3. So that shows you the caliber of team they are, that if they're losing, generally, it's not by this much. And there is actually no record of a loss this big on the Super League website that goes back to 2016 by Manchester Thunder. The last time that they lost 2 consecutive games was actually in April 2019. They then went on to beat Bath in the semis and win the title. So who knows what could happen?
Yeah, this game was just absolutely incredible. It was giving me life. I was sat there on the sofa just with my hands over my face like, oh my God, what is happening? That defence was just something else. And, you know, Bath remain unbeaten. And Lucy P, I think you might be spot on with what you said in episode 1 about them winning the title, because if they continue like this, they are going to be unstoppable.
Yeah, 100%.
Next up, we have our players of the round. So this week, I've gone for Halima Adio.
Nice.
Hallie had a terrific weekend against both Lightning and Dragons and is really starting to come into her own. pretty much every game that she's had so far, she's been a real standout for the Pulse side, and she's really shown how great of a leader she is. She's steering the team from the back time after time and supporting them on those harder games where they've not had a great performance and the scoreline sort of blown out a little bit. Despite giving away 18 centimetres to Choluk, she was one of the only keepers so far this season who's been able to keep Choluk quite quiet. And no doubt the other teams will be rewatching that game and furiously taking notes because she did an outstanding job. You know, Choluk has proven time and time again how formidable she is in goal shooter. So for Hallie to have done so well against her speaks absolute volumes. Her partnership with Fumi Fudoju is going to be spectacular. By the end of the season, that's going to be next level. And I would actually love to see more of Hallie in goalkeeper with Fumi in goal defence and then putting Zara Everett out in front of wing defence. I just think that partnership in the circle will be something really special.
Yeah, totally agree with you on that one. And I've also gone for a young gun this week. I've gone for Sienna Rushton.
Nice.
I think she has had such a huge transformation between last round, before the bye week, and this round. So before, she shot at 62% against Lightning, and she probably wouldn't have been that happy with that. She didn't get the start in the game against Wasps. We had that Grierson-Dixon combination, but she did come on in the second quarter, and that was when they pulled the deficit back from 8 goals, and they actually won that quarter by 3. Wowza. So that's kind of showing the impact that she had, and I think she did really well against Josie Huckle. She put up 27 from 32 at 84%. In the next game, she built on that confidence and started the next game putting away 36 from 42 at 86%. So that percentage and that consistency has really come up, and that's put her into number 5 on the top scorers leaderboard, which I thought was pretty cool for young gun. She also notched up 5 offensive rebounds in the game against Sirens. And the main thing for me was how well she played against Vinkumbo, who's been having such a great season. She kept her really quiet. I think Camilla Buchanan said that on commentary as well, that she did a really good job for that. And I think we should all remember that she was expecting to probably be an impact player, to maybe come on, you know, towards the end of the games, with Donnell Wallen being the starter. And now, obviously, due to that injury, she is the starting player, and she has stepped up. She is out there demanding the ball. She is moving into space. She is telling people, pointing and shouting, and I love to see it. I cannot wait to see her against Stars in round 7. I think she's fantastic.
I 100% agree. And actually, a lot of people are saying similar things on social media, is that game that she had against Sirens, she was almost like, she was a different player. Yeah. She was a completely different player to what we've seen so far. Not that she was doing bad in the season up until that date, but she just took it to another level. And she, like you say, she really stepped up, and you just love to see it from someone who's so young and so early in their development. Yeah, it's just great to see.
Yeah, I think Dan said as well, you know, imagine what she's going to be like in 5 years. And that is scary. And I cannot wait to see how she progresses. If she continues in this way of demanding the ball, telling people what she wants, and being consistent to the post, she's going to be unstoppable.
Could we just take a moment to look at the under 21 players that we have in this league and the World Youth Cup? You know what? Yeah. I reckon we might have a real fair crack of the whip. We have some serious young guns in this competition who will be part of that squad. It's just incredible.
And how great is it now that we get to see them every week, so that when we see them at the World Youth Cup, we're going to say, oh, that's so-and-so from this place. And it just really opens up a whole new world. Can't wait.
Love it.
Coming up, we've got our hotly anticipated interview with Caroline Barker for Netball in the Media Part 2.
In episode 2 of the podcast, we sat down with Stacey Francis for Netball in the Media Part 1, particularly looking at the topic from a player perspective. There is so much to unpack around this topic that we wanted to split it into 2 parts. And so we're absolutely thrilled to bring you part 2 today, but this time from the angle of a media expert. So who else would we be joined by than the ultra lovable Caroline Barker for our second instalment of Netball in the Media. Caroline, welcome to the pod.
This is the point where I'm supposed to say, where's the expert? Who are you looking for? It's you two, of course. It's more than a delight to be on your show. It's
You're too kind.
No, gosh, from a standing start, the guests that you've had on, the insight, the look behind the curtains at the world of netball has been brilliant.
Oh, thank you so much. That's a very big compliment coming
until
from
this
like
episode.
This is where it all goes downhill.
Yeah.
We've absolutely loved hearing you in commentary throughout the Super League season so far, and it's such a pleasure to have you with us today. How are you feeling after such a big weekend of matches that's just gone?
Do you know, previously on LA Law, the beauty of when I got to work in the Super League at least was I knew, right, I was just doing this once a week and that's what we do, and we'd go and do that and you all consume it for that. Now it's like full on total resource. So you've got stats coming out of your ears. You've got games that you can watch. And I think just that ability to be able to sit back, watch, enjoy some brilliant people. They've mixed things up a little bit this time round just because, a lot of us are off doing other things, although we'd love to be just doing netball full time, but we are off committed to other things. And they brought in some wonderful new voices, and to be able to sit and consume that anytime we like via YouTube or able to watch it live streamed on that their telly box has just been a real joy. And I think we've been spoilt rotten. How it's been packaged this year is phenomenal, and I think it's just taken it to an absolute another level, and not just from the media broadcast side of things, but the legwork that's been put in from England Netball, the joy of Ben's photos and the angles he's able to get, and you can see the sport across the faces down to the tiniest beads of sweat. I mean, clearly, if I was out there, it'd be a huge puddle. But these wonderful athletes, full throttle. How lucky are we? How lucky are we?
It really has taken it to the next level, hasn't it? I don't think the netball family was expecting as much as we are getting for every aspect, like the access to the games, the quality of broadcast, the quality of photos. I do have to give a shout out to Ben Lumley. Those photos are phenomenal. Oh my goodness.
That is such a key thing, because text can sell a story. It can, but you've got to access it. Now, if you're a newspaper or you're online, if you can say to them, look at this photo, look at this image that has writ large sport at its finest, and Ben's been able to supply that. Yes, it's great the access he's getting, but his amazing eye too, and just painting sport. And it is painting sport. They are, aren't they? They're pictures that you would hang on your wall. And he's done that. So it's another element of that that's pushed it forward.
Yeah, I've been so impressed by the work of Ben, and I just wish that more people could see it in general, because those fantastic quality pictures, they're absolutely ripe for being splashed on the front page of a newspaper. But as we kind of already know, there is a huge disparity between different sporting codes and how much coverage they receive in the media. If you think about this in terms of sporting success, though, that's where I think it kind of becomes even more bizarre, because we know that football dominates the sports coverage. And that's despite the fact that England men's team haven't won a major trophy since 1966. Yet the Roses obviously claimed that historic gold medal at the 2018 Commonwealth Games, bronze at the Netball World Cup, and they're the biggest women's sport in the UK. So when you look at it like that, where's the coverage?
It's historical though, right? In that, I guess you could go to any pub quiz and you say, when was the last time England's men's team won the World Cup? And you could roll that off, because you have been able to paint that story. To be able to tell a story, you have to be able to show people what they're missing. And that's what's happened. If I'm a fan of Celtic Dragons, I can now watch them every week. I can see who Annika Lee-Jones is and not know previously that she could play at both ends of the court. Yeah, she might be stronger at one end than the other, but she can play at both ends of the court. And why should I be interested in that? Because that doesn't always happen. And now suddenly I know her height. I know where she's come from. I know the teams that she's played for. I'm getting that history, that backstory that I wouldn't have had before. And I'll have got that on the first Saturday that I tuned in and watched it on a doubleheader weekend. But then I might have lost that previously because, I might be doing something next week, so I might not be able to pop along to Cardiff to watch the games, or I might not be able to find it on the website. And do I really want to go and hunt that out? I might not be able to flip through a podcast and listen to you talk about stories and the stories behind the stories. But now I can. Now I can say, I'm a Celtic Dragons fan, and I can watch them every week on the telly, and I can tune into you interviewing such and such, and I can find out why that matters, and I want to know more about her. I can do that now. Football historically has been there on the pages, and it's been there as something that you would talk about because you could talk about it because you had that knowledge. You could see it, you could feel it, you could go and watch it. We're getting to that stage now where that will happen. Sky, and I'm not paid to say this, but if you think of the legacy in which they've been involved in netball from the start, and at the very start, the cost of actually going down to a venue that wasn't rigged up for telly and having people there and having to, plug in there's a really technical, a lead, plug it in, make it happen, hang out a window, however it happened. But the cost of doing that, it was prohibitive to show these games every week. And now they're innovating and coming up with things. And now I've got role models that I can read about and feel. And we all knew they were brilliant, right? We all knew they could talk. We all knew they had stories. We all knew they could pull it out on court. But now we're seeing and we're hearing it and we're reading it. So, yeah, you're right. It's a rum deal and it's got to improve. But it's those two things will go hand in hand. And now we've got to take the initiative. All those sports that, rightly so, lockdown happens, we're thinking, blimey, what's going to happen to our sport? Is it going to implode? Where are we going to go from here? And just look how netball has embraced that and been empowered by that and stepped forward as a result of that. So now's the opportunity. It's in a year from now, if we turn back and go, they're still not covering it. Well, netball has played its role now and it filled a void that was there. So how do we keep that going?
Absolutely. It's that visibility, isn't it? Now we're able to see those stories playing out in front of our eyes. The fans they're desperate for more now. I mean, my boyfriend watches the NFL and there are 24-hour news channels of NFL. And I mean, that is basically the dream for me. It's like a 24-hour netball news channel. And we're obviously a long way off, but we're getting there because we get those little nuggets and we get to follow the different players' journeys and we see who stood up this week and who stood up that week. And that kind of coverage is something that I think netball fans are really seeing. But how do we engage the more fringe fans or people who aren't necessarily following, who maybe know about netball, but they're not invested? How do you think we get them on board with those stories?
What we need to do is give it the biggest platform possible. I think people I know in relative positions of power in netball totally top button me every week because they know I'm going to be saying, right, you should go and do this. Brisbane, the Olympics, straight on the phone. Right, have you thought about this, this and this? We need to take those moments. That's why the Commonwealth Games was so important because suddenly, what time in the morning was it back here? And I've not just dropped that to brag that I was there, but whatever time in the morning it was back here, but people were awake and then they rerun it and then it gets to sports personality and you're talking about it in the same vein as, and people think, oh, what was that moment? And why are they there? And what is that sport? And what is that conversation? So it is, it's absolutely about creating conversations around that. And the onus is on all of us to do that. But at the same time, it's about making it think, you know what? I've seen that TikTok that Sirens have done. And actually, that's something that I want to talk about and be part of. And it's just something that I do because it's cool. All these really, really high end, but also at the same time, brands that now want to be associated with the sport. Of course, they absolutely should. We know how brilliant these women are. We know what the mixed league can bring to it, what the new men's teams will bring to it too. Look at Giants in London, the men's team starting. You know, all these brands want to be associated with it, and that is just how it's going to grow. And that's how it becomes part of your culture. It's not just about sport, it's about everything else that's around it.
No, that really resonates with me, and it's about the bigger picture, like that transformative power of sport. And funnily, mentioning the Commonwealth Games, that was actually the moment that completely changed my life personally. My previous history and work was all in the theatre, in the arts. I did netball at school. I liked it. didn't really think much else of it. But because the Commonwealth Games were being shown on, was it BBC, I think it was, and because I had access to it, when I watched that game and we won that gold medal, it was like a bolt of electricity through my body, and something just completely changed. And it was that moment that I was like, that's it, my future, my career lies in netball. And, you know, my life has completely changed from that moment. So it's having that visibility and that accessibility, and the power that has is just infinite.
You're so right. The arts, like sport, it's a live event, right? So you just got to get someone sat there, because they'll be hooked the minute they're sat there, because everyone wants, who doesn't want to be particularly at the moment, who doesn't want to be at a concert or a moment or have that shared experience. Where Sky and BBC have been brilliant at the World Cup, we see a lot more of these broadcast organisations working together and seeing the value in that too. And Sky have done it before, where they've said to the BBC, right, you can have, say, that one game in England International Series, and then the rest you can come and see on Sky. Again, look at that now, just opening up to YouTube. It's actually a real benefit to having broadcasters that talk and understand it and are in it for the right reasons. They absolutely are in it for the right reasons. They want to promote the sport. It's not about finances, is it? I guess otherwise a lot of these companies wouldn't get involved at the start. It's about the long-term gain of what it can do to help girls, women, sport. Sport is sport. If it's engaging, you'll want to watch it, won't you?
Yeah, absolutely. Even my grandpa's been watching it, a bit of netball. He says, oh yeah, I've seen a bit of netball on, been watching that. I mean, he's, you know, diehard football and cricket fan. He's shown an interest because there's that visibility there. And I think there is really the sense that netball is standing up and almost demanding that attention. And with things like the Headlines Not Sidelines campaign from Strathclyde Sirens, we're seeing netball making more noise than ever before. And we just don't want that momentum to kind of fizzle out after this season.
It's really important in that those that love netball will watch it on a phone when there's multi-lines on a court, maybe when the dresses look a little bit similar, and we'll try and work it out on one camera. Like, we know that exists, right? But interesting when you talk about NFL, and actually if you look at how American it looks now, in that your focus is down on the court, the lights are down, it's flashy around it, and those are all really simple techniques. All those little things, if you look at England netball, when we think of the All-Stars tournament, how quickly that was turned around, but the branding on that was absolutely on point, wasn't it? To disguise where they were, to feel like you're there in the heart of it when you're so far away is a real key, and that is quite an American thing. I don't want to take full credit for it, but I kept banging on about a simple thing like a t-shirt cannon ahead of the Netball World Cup, and just little things just to create that real fan experience. You want it to be the ticket that no one can get. You want it to be, the event that you're desperate, the party you're desperate to be. Obviously, it's never happened with me, right? But the party you're desperate to be at, but you couldn't get an invite for. That's how you want it to be. You want there to be that real hunger and desire for it. And I think those sorts of things are really important in hooking people in now.
You mentioned the t-shirt cannon and the Brisbane Olympics. How much influence do you, as a commentator within the media broadcasting world, have? Like, how have you been able to make suggestions that have been taken on board? Have you been able to see your ideas come to life?
Absolutely nothing. But I've tried every step away along the way. So I make huge suggestions all the time, and who knows whether any of it sticks. I'm so blooming fortunate in the job that I have, that particularly when I've worked a lot with the World Service, is that I've been fortunate to go all over the world and experience all these big tournaments and see how they do it. And sometimes I don't think there's been enough resource really for that to happen for netball, to go and experience what everyone else has done. But Lindsay Imbert comes in, and she was over at the Commonwealth Games prior, seeing what they were doing, and then thinking about actually what can we take and use at the Netball World Cup, and all those little things, the fan parks, all stuff that you'd love. And I'm sure people, they see this and they'd love it on a wish list, but it's actually then, at what stage can we get the council to get involved and say that that's okay, and we'll put some money towards that? You can have the big screen up there, or you can show it on the big screen there, or at what stage will we get the sponsor in who's going to be the branding on all the merchandise that means that we can have and will have queues around the block to find it. So it's all those things coming together. I have I'm sure I've got no effect on it. but people listen to your ideas, and that's the main thing, right? People listen to your show and will be inspired by Dan Ryan and what he had to say. We'll hear Sue Gordian. There is no reason why shouldn't we be the league and the destination for the world's best players. We have got players in playing the league this year that I'm sure will be off playing in some court next time round, because, or at least when their contracts allow, because you can just see the growth amongst these great players getting court time. But it'll be great to be that destination for it. England has a real opportunity with Liz at INF, with those that are around, to help grow the game globally. That's the only way that it's going to work. We need to be invested in America. There's kind of two different affiliations over in America. I'd love to see them all come together. There are some great young netball talented players in America at colleges. Let's get them playing. Let's send over some all-stars. Let's have a Fast Five tournament. Fast Five is really accessible. Rolling subs, shooting from distance. It's really accessible. What can we do with that to make it a sport that can be at the Paralympics, that can be men's, women's, that can be played through mixed leagues? Just create something that's real social. And how can we get that going across the world? We need to target America. We need to get leagues playing. We know the brilliance that they're in emerging different countries playing this sport at the moment. What can England do to offer friendlies, to offer, come over and play, come be part of our league? What can we do to really grow it globally? And then we'll all benefit. And then we'll break that New Zealand-Australian stranglehold on 1 and 2. And it's shown, right? We've got the heart, desire. We've got the brilliant players. We just need to give them the best opportunity to be full-time, to be love and enjoying their sport, and to play to the best of their abilities at the top, and have all that huge grassroots platform underneath supporting it.
Interesting what you were saying about cracking America. I saw an idea that someone had put on Twitter, which was pitching a TV show. So like a Netflix series where a team of the best, probably basketball athletes from America, go over to Australia. They train with someone like West Coast Fever, do like a boot camp. Some of them get kicked off. They have a selection period. I mean, how amazing would something like that be? And then you've got a ready-made American national team, who are sorted and ready to go. That's the kind of progression. I mean, we want to see the Last Dance equivalent in netball. Who do you think would be good for that, something like that?
What you're saying about something like Netflix is it's in however many millions of homes, and people flick around. If you want to push something to the top of the algorithm and have it on the homepage, then they can do that. So absolutely, we've seen it happen a few times in Australia. They do like house building programs that a couple of the big netball stars have been on, and that's kind of translated through. There's always I'd really hoped, and someone I knew at the BBC was also sort of loosely in charge of Strictly and getting people on that, and I kept banging on about get Serena Guthrie on there, get Serena on there.
Amazing.
So those sort of But you're right, it's those sorts of things. And, you know how social media comes alive, and netball social media comes alive, and, such and such is on Question of Sport again, or, whatever they might be on when you see some of the Sky programs and they go down and they're playing netball. So we all know that these are brilliant people, but you're right, that crossover. What I would hope is that there are some great netballers already playing in America. So it's, do you go in the basketball to netball route, or do you go to those that are just famous doing something else and see if they'll hook in? The very long answer, which is unlike me, to your very short question, is it would be great, but I'd love to see some proper netball in there too.
I think the Americas is a really interesting one, because especially when it comes to talk around Olympics, a lot of people will say, you know, we're not going to get into the Olympics until we have men's netball. But actually, I think that's probably partly true. But I think a bigger part of it is that we don't have a lot of the big hitters like America, like China, like Russia, who regularly play netball, and it's one of their major sports. So I actually wonder whether that's more of a factor into why netball isn't an Olympic sport.
I think it's both. There is no reason why there can't be men's and women's netball at the Olympics. There's no reason why we can't have netball at the Paralympics. But yeah, you do need enough competition through it, I think, spread across. And we see that, of course, at the Commonwealth Games. We do see that. But sometimes, yeah, it just takes opening of eyes. It's more about actually having enough nations playing it.
And speaking of that men's and women's sport, there was an article by Liz Ellis published quite recently called "It's Time to Stop Talking About Women's Sport as a Sideshow."
Yes, and, Liz Ellis.
Oh, I loved this article so much. She really hit the nail on the head. And it's something that's really bugged Lucy P and I for a long, long time, is this concept of women's sport. Surely this sets the default as men's sport. You know, you don't have men's football and women's football. It's football and women's football, and the same with rugby. So what are your thoughts on the idea of banishing the title of women's sports as a standalone thing altogether, and for all sports from now on to be categorised as men's sports and women's sports?
Sport is sport is sport is sport is sport is sport is sport.
It's sport? Okay, yeah.
It's sport. Right, I get sometimes with the crumb trails on websites to get a little bit geeky, right? So if you have Arsenal and you go to a major sport website, then in their mind they're thinking, right, how do I differentiate? If I put the score up that Arsenal beat Chelsea 2-1, whoa, you're not going to know whether it's the Arsenal men's team or the women's team. So blooming what? They're so blooming what? People, at our time of talking, Marcus Rashford has tweeted about the fact that Manchester United women's football team will be playing at Old Trafford against West Ham United. And he's got a brilliant, I'm paraphrasing, but brilliant is where they should be playing, absolutely earned the right to. Why do you do it? Like, why do you put yourself through looking at responses to tweets?
I
don't know why you do it. But anyway.
I do it all the time. Yeah.
However, they're like, yeah, go Man United. Lots of them. There is some vitriol in there. Why are you talking about this? But lots of the responses are, yeah, come on, Manchester United. The backing Manchester United. It's Manchester United that I support. And if I see they're one of our own, I don't support Manchester United. Well, I'd like to distance myself from that. So if I was to, I don't. But if I see a boy or girl come through the Manchester United system and they end up playing for England, then I should feel pride in the fact that they've come through the Manchester United system and end up playing for England. But I get the kind of the categories that sometimes they feel they need to put it in. But no. The same argument about you going and being involved and loving watching plays or going to a concert is exactly the same. Once you go, you will love it for what it is. And yeah, sport is sport, and it's an environment that, yes, of course, girls and women feel safe in, but it's also an environment that should be inclusive for all. So we shouldn't put up a barrier to anything.
100%. And actually, talking about what you touched on there with the comments, a lot of things kind of pop up, and Lucy and I have discussed this in previous podcasts about the anonymous nature of the internet, about people being able to comment on things and say whatever they want. And do you think that broadcasters and netball in general should do more to address those? So you see on BBC, the comments will come through and no one's kind of replying to those and saying, no, actually, that's not acceptable. It is a real sport, which is insane that we have to justify that it is a real sport. And is there more you think that can be done in that space?
The problem is what keywords do you put in? I could get it. I guess if you put in filter, this is not a sport, those words are going to be used in positive comments as well in relation to something else. So you can't place an automatic filter on that. There are moderators, but again, you can't moderate everything if you think of huge amounts of content that's over. We are very angry at the moment. I feel like people feel justified in being angry in public spaces and not then reflecting on the damage that could do. And I have crumbled at it. I have known that others crumble at it. I don't really tweet a lot now. I hate not having those conversations with people, but also it's, do I want to expose myself to bile and vitriol? It's not all like that. I mean, I don't know. I'm just not looking, so I don't know. But and maybe that's my assumption over some comments. And I don't necessarily mean in netball. I mean, this is a problem we've all got at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah.
When did we earn the right to be angry and vile to someone who we don't know? When do we earn the right to have our first days broadcasting to millions, thousands, hundreds of people critiqued? When did I decide that, I want to go and work in an office environment, but that day that I go and work, my first day in an office environment, I'm going to have every member of that staff or everyone that's ever shopped in that building or been part or gone through that organisation pass comment on my first day in a job or my second, third, fourth, my fifth year in a job. So there's a point at which you as yourself have to say, who are the voices that I trust? Who are those that critique that I value their opinion? And that's so difficult to do because of course it's going to hurt. Of course it's going to hurt you. What makes us is the fact that we do feel, we do have emotions, and we do have this ability to connect to one another. Otherwise life becomes very lonely on our own. However, it's trying to sift through that and think, actually, who are the voices that I trust within that? So yeah, of course there's always more we can do, but you can't change a whole world like that. You just have to trust and change those pockets that are around you.
Yeah, I think the sporting sector is actually probably one of the most volatile in terms of the abuse that people can receive when they work in there. And Women in Sport actually published some research last year, and it showed that nearly 4 in 10 women working in sport report having experienced discrimination in the workplace because they are female. And I noticed particularly with the Six Nations, Maggie Alfonsi was one of the commentators, and she was incredible. She was absolutely amazing. But I'm just going to read out some of the comments that she received. So the first one, female commentators for rugby can't keep their noses out of anything. Number 2, let female pundits comment on female rugby matches whilst the men's rugby sticks to male commentators. Female pitched voices spoil the whole game. Enough said. And my personal favourite, just to get into the spirit of modern feminism, I'd like to suggest the female co-commentator on the rugby pop off and put the kettle on for half time. It just blows your mind. Do you think that we will ever get to a point where the discrimination, the sexism and the misogyny in the media will end?
You have to hope so, don't you? Otherwise
what are we doing?
Incredibly, yeah, absolutely. You have to hope so. But in the same way that we want people to have a conversation about netball, because that's how it's going to get into people's lives, there's sort of, and it's wrong, but there's an expectation that this will happen. I think, was it Barstool Sports? What did they say? They critique netball. It was offensive, and they had a platform. They have a platform of however many million on social media, and it was offensive. And the reaction from that, you have to hope that there's some self-moderation in there, and you have to hope that people come back, and you have to hope that there's, same with any element of society, right? You've got to hope that balances up. You've got to hope that. It is wrong, and Maggie shouldn't have to read that. I'm sure she has read that, because as much as you say you want to avoid it, you know people you love are reading it, because that's how I've been alerted to some stuff before when I've been doing football. Is I've seen people that I love or I respect, who I follow, jump on to respond to it. Gosh, it's difficult. Of course it's difficult. But you're doing a job that you love. And I used to, and I still do, every day that I turn up to work, I stand outside the doors and I think, look at that. Look at that sign above the door that says Sky Sports. Look at those, the history in that building at Broadcasting House. And it has to be enough that I'm walking through those doors and I'm working with brilliant people. And they're the views that I respect. There's the comments that I want to hear. And there's the critique that I will take. The other side to that, and when I say about we want a conversation to happen, we want netball to be part of the conversation, is I do think there is an onus on us to, at some point, I mean in a constructive way, to talk about, well, that passage of play didn't really work out and they've not won a game since X, Y, and Z. And actually they've got the quality of players. And actually, if you listen to the majority of the post-match interviews that we hear now, there is analysis in there. And the coaches are critiquing. We are critiquing. Coaches are critiquing themselves, and that conversation is happening. And the more that you have stats building things up and you have facts behind things, that will happen. We need to ask firm, tough questions as you would in any sport, because you can't be nice about everything, and there's ebbs and flows within sport that you need to talk about. But yeah, calling people out for doing their job and a job that they've been asked to do. If I am asked to do a job, if I'm asked to go and sit down and watch sport and talk about sport and be paid, maybe even go to somewhere I've never been before, maybe even be fed, stay in a hotel, have someone else iron my sheets and turn over my covers, am I going to say no because someone's going to be sat there going, wow, you're a woman? No. Yeah. But I do want to be there because I've earned the right to be there. And you have to trust the judgment of those that employ you to say that is what you've done.
Yeah. And I think actually there's so much more pressure on women commentators or women pundits within sports. And I think, as I mentioned before, I come from a history in the arts and theatre, a bit of performing, and I think people can often underestimate the intense pressure that people feel when you're doing something live. There are no takebacks. That is it. What you say is what you say, and that's what goes out live, and the nerves that go alongside that.
You don't have a script. There's no auto cue on. I mean, there might be, but I know when we sit down to do the netball, when I sit down to host a football show, there's no auto cue. You've got 5 voices coming through your ears telling you the countdown on how long you've got left on that. You've got a producer saying you've got to move on. You've got someone saying a tape's coming up next. And you've got to listen to the 2 guests that you've got there and think what you're going to ask next. The key thing is listening, which I was sort of doing to you there and then have just trampled all over you. But But, the context of all that going around, there is no script there. And there'll be a bit, you might muck something up and you have to let that go. But that's so same as sport. Your goal shooter puts a shot up once, misses it the second time, knows that there's 3 seconds left on the clock. And the pressure on that third, you're not telling me they're not thinking about the 2 misses they've just put away. They're not thinking about everything else around that. So all that pressure is on top of them. You're right, all that pressure is there.
And I think there's a lot of things that people don't take into account, like you say, with all the voices in your ear and statistics maybe being put in under your nose at the last second. Can you tell us what it's like to actually do it? And bearing in mind that you're having to, please correct me if I'm wrong, but you're having to commentate on the game 185 miles away from where the game is actually happening in London, right?
Yeah, off tube. So I have always wanted to be somewhere. It's always so much better if you can be somewhere, right? Because you walk, whatever the event is, if you're covering a royal wedding, or if you do, I started in news, right? You're so reliant on a TV director, and this is where they're great. So imagine a shot's put up, final second. If the camera or the director is just on the net and whether the ball sunk through, and you're not seeing the umpire, you're not seeing whether they've said whether that goal counts or not. And that can be really crucial. Imagine if it's 34 all, if you're Saracens and Sirens. Imagine if you're that and you haven't got that right shot. So you're dependent on other people because your focus is just the TV screen in front of you. You can't see the stuff if you're in an arena, someone's warming up on the sidelines. Oh yeah, they're going to come on. The change is going to happen because someone's just sprinted off the bike down to do a wee, got a bib on and ready to come on. You can't see that. You're relying on a WhatsApp message. I mean, they're brilliant, by the way. The table officials and the teams and the support groups around it are brilliant. There's a huge WhatsApp group we've got where they try and you can see typing. Gosh, when if you've had an argument with someone and you're really waiting for them to respond on WhatsApp, right? And it's typing is the longest thing. Imagine trying to look down. You can see typing, right? What you type, what's about to happen. And you're trying to look at the screen and but you know what? And this is where they're brilliant, the people that you work with. I know that I can pause and the pictures will breathe and they'll still tell the story. I know I can pause and there's someone next to me who has played on an international stage, has been in that situation. And you know what? Because they're brilliant, they can talk and they can feel airtime and I can look down and I know that they can see me. But when the commentators are doing the YouTube games, they're in different rooms as well. So the commentator is in a different room from where the co-commentator will be. And you're doing it off a screen. The resources and what they've been able to pull together and to make it look effortless, I am in awe. I'm in awe of all these people that have stepped into new shoes, fresh shoes, and are doing it for the first time. As you may have discovered, I can talk, right? So, and I think that's from doing radio where you might just walk in and there's breaking news and you've got to talk for 3 hours about a subject you've got diddly no knowledge about. But we're expecting people to sit in front of a microphone and a red light goes on, knowing that their contemporaries are listening and watching at home. All of that pressure on top of them too. And there's just a point, I make them all stand up. And because the minute you're sat down and you're you just think, I just scratch the back of my head, have a slice of pizza and watching the telly. It's quite nice and warm outside. And you know what? I just quite like watching this. How lucky we were sat here watching. But if you're stood up, suddenly your diaphragm, everything's opened up, right? You're on your toes. You know you're part of an occasion. Can you vary the pace? Is something going to happen? If you know a score's blowing out, does something brilliant happen? I love them to jump over the top of me. Ebony with her whoopsies and she comes in over the top and I love that because she's feeling it like you're sat at home feeling, and she's been in that moment. She knows how that feels. So trample all over the top of me and scream. Sarah Bayman, when we're at the Commonwealth Games, I don't know what I just saw a wave and she just said, and because that's what everyone's feeling back home at 4:00 in the morning. And there is a role within whoever's commentating next just to be the narrator and take you and guide you along that. But you want that full-blown emotion from them, and that is what they've been wonderful at. All these people doing commentary for the first time, they have got the knowledge that's gold dust, right? They've been out there and experienced it and been part of it, and we should just be always grateful, but gosh, you're getting to listen to people that have played in Commonwealth Games finals, that have won medals, that have stood on that Super League stage and been champions, that have coached these players. And that insight, how brilliant is that? When I was playing as a kid coming up and through in Essex, if I'd been able to have that and think, oh, that's what I'm doing wrong, or that's what I need to do, or could I do it like her? Could I change my rotation in the circle? These things that I could do. How amazing is that? And to do all that and be nowhere near Wakefield, I'm in awe of all of them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my goodness, talk about insight. That is it's just so incredible to hear your sort of firsthand experience of all of that. And I think Ebony, I do have to say, Ebony is probably one of my favorite commentators because, as you say, she lives and breathes the game in every moment. And the whoopsie daisies are a thing of beauty.
By the way, I mean, do stop me because I know you've all got homes to get to, right? But that shot that they've been showing, the overhead camera, there's times when you'll just hear me go quiet, very rarely, but there's times because whoever's next to me has spotted that they've gone to that overhead camera And in that moment, they're giving you your own masterclass. So they will tell you, Camilla's done it. I think I've been with Pamela when she's done it. They just suddenly start. You can see the ball's being turned over in defence, and this is what they're doing, and then straight back on the zone. Who's moving where? Where are they trying to do it? How are they seeing it on court from where they're sat? Who are they looking to? Where are they thinking 4 passes ahead? They've got 3 seconds on their mind, and they're taking you through all of that, and it's happening. Bang, 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 bang. Regardless of whether we're sat however many miles away. Thank you. That was knowledge that I should be saying, but I'm not. We should all feel like we're there, and they do that because these wonderful players and coaches that we've got alongside us take you in it. They make it accessible. They're wonderful.
Yeah, you do feel like you're there, and also that you want to be there in the stands as well, and to see it week on week is incredible. I just really hope and pray that we don't go back to looking at things on Twitter, because it's unfortunately we've tasted this. It's not going to be good enough.
Well, as you've discovered, I will still be talking to you on Zoom come next season. So we'll, regardless, right? We'll still talk about it. We'll still be there in some shape or form.
Thank you so much, Caroline. This has been absolutely brilliant to hear your insight, and thank you. We've gone a little bit over time, but I think that's okay.
I'm so sorry.
No, we kept asking you questions because it's absolutely fascinating to hear from you, and thank you so much.
My pleasure. And everyone deserves a little bit of a pat on the back, and you deserve a huge pat on the back in this game of non-contact sport, a little bit of body on body, because what you're doing off your own back and talking about netball is helping get the word out there, and it's making it enjoyable too. People want to listen, so well done.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of QTR Time. We can't wait to bring you yet another special guest next week.
Make sure you subscribe to the podcast and follow us on social media at QTR Time Pod for the latest netball updates. Get involved in the conversation online by tagging us in your 3-word summaries of the games and letting us know which players have stood out for you each week using the story template in our Instagram highlights.
Enjoy the next round of matches, and we'll see you next week. Bye!